Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to live without chasing the future? To stop fighting and simply flow with life? Alan Watts, a philosopher, a storyteller, a guide, dedicated his life to this question. Alan Wilson Watts was born in 1915 in a small town in England. As a child, he was deeply curious. He loved nature. He would sit quietly in gardens, watching how rivers flowed, how trees swayed, how clouds drifted. This fascination with the natural world slowly turned into a fascination with Eastern philosophy. Remember, this was the early 20th century. In England, most people only knew about Christianity, but young Alan was already reading books about Buddhism, Taoism, and Hinduism. He saw something in them, something that spoke to him more deeply than the world around him. In his teenage years, Watts moved to America. He studied theology. For a short time, he even became an Episcopal priest. But he quickly realized that his real calling was not in the church, but in explaining, in translating, the wisdom of the East for the West. So he left the priesthood. He began writing books, giving lectures, speaking to anyone who would listen. By the 1950s and 60s, Alan Watts became one of the most recognizable voices of philosophy in the West. Not the philosophy of dusty libraries, but philosophy for life, for living. Now, what exactly did Alan Watts teach? It's hard to summarize because he never wanted to be a guru. He once said, "I am a philosophical entertainer." But behind the humor, the wit, the laughter, there were powerful insights. He often said that life is not a problem to solve. Life is not a journey with a destination. Life is play. Think of music. We don't listen to a song just to hear the final note. We dance, we sing, we enjoy every moment. In the same way, life is meant to be lived right now, not rushed, not postponed. Another central idea is that the ego, the I we cling to, is an illusion. Watts explained it beautifully. He said we often believe we are separate from the world, like tiny islands cut off from everything else. But in truth, we are part of the same ocean. The self is not separate from the universe. It is the universe looking at itself through your eyes. Alan Watts also reminded us that the present moment is all we ever have. We worry about the future. We regret the past. But as Watts said, the future is a concept. It doesn't exist. There is no such thing as tomorrow. There is only the eternal now. Imagine listening to this in the 1960s, when the world was racing forward with technology, wars, and social change. Watts' voice was like a bell, reminding people to breathe, to return to now. Perhaps his greatest gift was building a bridge between East and West. He explained Zen Buddhism, Taoism, and Hinduism in a way Western audiences could truly understand. He told stories. He used humor. He didn't demand belief. He simply invited curiosity. For example, he explained Taoism as the watercourse way. He would say, "Look at water. It is soft, flexible, yielding, and yet over time it can wear down the hardest rock." So too, he suggested, should we live? Flexible, flowing, natural. Alan Watts passed away in 1973 at the age of 58, but his words did not fade. In fact, they grew louder with time. His lectures were recorded on tape, and today, decades later, they are everywhere. On YouTube, on podcasts, on meditation apps. Millions of people, many of whom never heard his name before, now hear his voice daily. He influenced musicians. He influenced psychologists. He influenced seekers of all kinds. From the counterculture of the 1960s to the mindfulness movement of today, Alan Watts remains a voice that never grows old. So what do we learn from Alan Watts? We learn that life is not a struggle. It is not about clinging to the ego or racing to the future. It is about flow. It is about play. It is about living fully now. Watts once said, "You are an aperture through which the universe is looking at itself." Think about that. What does it mean to live your life knowing you are not separate from the world, but deeply connected to it? Perhaps that is the gift Alan Watts left us. Not answers, but better questions. Questions that invite us to live more freely, more openly, and more joyfully. Right here, right now. This is the timeless voice of Alan Watts.